Over the course of my life, I've tried and tested pretty much every single training style and lifting philosophy under the sun, and pretty much every single one was built on the foundation of lifting weights until now. And before I go into exactly why I don't really lift weights anymore, I kind of want to touch on the topic of an identity or a philosophy that you apply into the gym. And the reason this is so important is because your identity, whether it's in the gym or not in the gym, it determines every single thing that you do. It's who you are, it's how you live your life. And so when you have an identity in the gym, whether that's a power lifter or a bodybuilder or an athlete or maybe just like an endurance runner, that will determine what kind of style you have for your training and what you do outside of the gym to maximize your performance in the gym. And so I have been a bodybuilder, I have been a power lifter, I have been an endurance runner, I have been an athlete. And one thing that I have learned from every single one of these training philosophies or training identities is that they all have their strengths and they all have their weaknesses, but which one you choose depends strictly on how you feel about yourself and what kind of goals you have. But I think picking one and sticking with one for at least a little while is extremely important. And what I'm doing right now is I've stepped into the identity of an athlete. Like I played football and baseball in high school. I was an athlete. I've been an athlete my entire life. I've played sports. And now what I'm doing is taking that same kind of mentality and applying it to my training right now. But the sport I'm training for is boxing. And I don't know if I'm going to be a professional boxer, but I'm training like I'm going to be. And that has what has allowed me to take my training to the next level and allow me to push myself as much as I possibly can. So when I'm talking about your identity in the gym or your gym philosophy, your training philosophy, I'm talking about what your intention is when you step into the gym. So if you were a powerlifter, you identified as a powerlifter, your training would involve you getting stronger. You would try and get stronger on all of your lifts as if you were preparing for a powerlifting meet. If you were a bodybuilder, you would be going into the gym every single day with the intention of building as much muscle as you possibly could. Maybe you are preparing for a bodybuilding show. If you were an athlete, you're playing whatever sport, maybe football, baseball, basketball, boxing, you go into the gym and you do movements and you train for that specific sport so you can perform better in that sport. And the same like endurance running, you're going to be running long distances so that you can build up your cardio and maybe train for a race. And so I really don't think it matters too much which identity, which philosophy you choose, as long as you pick one. Because the biggest thing that I see with people in the gym that don't make really any progress is that they don't have any sort of intention. They don't have any goals for why they're actually in the gym. They just might be, they want to get in better shape. They want to improve their health. They want to get a little bigger, build some muscle. But when you don't have anything in the back of your mind at all times, you're not going to push yourself as hard as you need to. You're not going to take your training to that next level that actually makes you a elite level athlete or an elite level bodybuilder or elite level powerlifter. You have to have that mentality when you're in the gym. And so as a powerlifter, I would just go into the gym and do some really heavy sets of bench, squat, or deadlift. And I would focus really hard on progressively overloading in each of those lifts and getting stronger and stronger as if I were preparing for a powerlifting meet. And the same thing with bodybuilding. I would go in with a pretty meticulous split and just really focus on the mind-muscle connection and building muscle and doing exercises that would help me build muscle and get bigger. And so now that I'm kind of back in that athlete phase like I was earlier in my life, I'm not really concerned anymore about building a bunch of muscle or gaining a bunch of strength. I'm really concerned about building my muscular endurance, building explosive power, speed, and ridiculous cardio. Because in a sport like boxing, which is the sport that I'm training for, you need to have a lot of quickness, a lot of muscular endurance, and really, really good cardio. And so that has kind of been, that's what's been in the back of my mind as I structure my training and as I train. And so if you clicked on this video, I'm going to assume that you are drawn to the athlete identity or the bodybuilder identity, because if you were a powerlifter or you were drawn to that, I don't think you would click on a video about getting jacked while not lifting weights. But either way, I want to show you kind of the approach that I'm taking to training, because I really have never felt as good and I've never performed as well as I do right now. And I truly have never enjoyed training as much as I do now either. And so my training recently has consisted of lots of body weight movements like push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, sprints, jump squats, and then lots of cardio. I'm pretty much doing cardio every single day. And just because that is like the most important aspect in a sport like boxing, you have to have incredible cardio if you want to keep up. But how you kind of go through your training will depend a lot on what your identity is and what your goals for training are. And like I said, I really want to develop speed, power, and endurance. And I'm not really concerned as much about building muscle anymore. I'm really just kind of concerned with keeping the muscle that I have and building that muscular endurance and building that power. And so a week of training for me right now would look something like this. It'll fluctuate quite a bit, but this is like a solid foundation, I think, of what I've been doing. On Monday, I would focus on like push-ups and pull-ups as like the two bodyweight exercises, and I would do them every minute on the minute. So this is how it works. I learned this from a book called The Art of the Sweet Science. For example, you start the timer, you bang out 15 push-ups, and it takes like 30 seconds. You would only be able to rest for the remaining 30 seconds, and then once the timer hits 1 minute, you would start again, and then you do 15 or 20. Maybe it takes you 20 seconds. You'd have 40 seconds to rest. And you do that over and over again. This is a fantastic way to build muscular endurance. And this is kind of how I've been approaching pretty much every single bodyweight movement that I do, because I know how important it is to build that muscular endurance. And I have a pretty solid strength foundation just from my days as a powerlifter and a bodybuilder. So now I'm really focusing on that muscular endurance. But then after that, that's only 2 exercises. I would go on the treadmill and I will do pretty much 5 rounds at 3.5 minutes each at like 8.5 miles an hour with like a minute break. And so these are kind of like interval runs. I think it's like a 7-minute mile pace, but that is what I will do after the bodyweight movements, so I can kind of get that cardio in for the day. And then in the evening, I will do some sort of like boxing workout most of the time. I'll do like 2 sets of 3 minutes on the jump rope, and then I'll do 2 sets of 3 minutes shadow boxing, then probably like 6 or 7 rounds, 3 minutes on the heavy bag, and then 2 sets of 3 minutes on the speed bag, which is just like the thing on the wall. And that is insane for shoulder endurance as well. Tuesday, I don't really focus as much on resistance training. I really just focus on the cardio aspect of things. So I'll do like 5 rounds of 2 minutes on the treadmill at like 10 miles an hour, which is like a 6-minute mile pace. And that is like a little bit higher intensity than what I do on Monday. And so that's pretty much all I do for Tuesday. And then either I will spar that night or I'll just take the day off. Wednesday would be pretty similar to Monday, except if I don't do push-ups or pull-ups, I will do a kettlebell swing ladder, which this is absolutely insane. If you haven't tried this yet, you should try it. This is like one of the best ways to increase your VO2 max, which is basically how efficient your body is at moving oxygen around. And so what you would do, you would take a kettlebell that you can do like 20 reps with on a kettlebell swing. And so you'd start with 1, you do 1 swing, you put it down, take 1 breath, and then you do 2, and then take 2 breaths, 3 breaths. And so your rest time is basically the breaths that you take in between each of the sets, right? And you go all the way up to 20 and then back down to 1. And this, I promise you, if you try this, your lungs are going to be burning. If you don't like running, for example, like if you really want to build up cardio, but you don't like running, maybe you have like shin splints or just bad knees, you should try this. I think I heard of this because it's what the Air Force uses to build up their VO2 max, because when you're in the air, you have to be pretty good at, distributing oxygen around your body. So that's what I've been doing at least once or twice a week. And then Thursday, like I'd probably do some sort of sprint, either outside, like on the road, or on the treadmill, where I do like a sprint, like a 30-second sprint at like a 5% incline, and then like a 30-second break, or maybe a little bit longer. But sprints are such a good way to train your legs, because I did heavy squats, heavy leg press, heavy quad. I did all that stuff, back in the day. But now, since I don't really care as much about building like just raw strength, I really want to focus on building explosive power and muscular endurance in my legs. So that running is going to help a lot with that. But sprinting, even if you're not like an athlete, sprinting, it has got to be one of the best ways to build up just massive, just powerful legs. There's nothing like it. So one thing you could do if you wanted to start sprinting, you could go find a track, or just on the street, for example. You sprint like 100 meters, you walk back, and then you sprint, walk back, sprint, walk back. You could do that like 10 or so times. I promise you, your legs are going to be on fire, and so will your lungs. But sprint workouts there's nothing like that. If you don't think it would be that hard, I highly encourage you to go out and try it, and just come back to me and tell me what you think. Tell me how your legs feel. Tell me how your lungs feel. So on Friday, I'll do some sort of like swimming workout, where I'm not like an expert swimmer, so I'll kind of just like find a workout or create some sort of workout before I go, and then I'll just do that. But it's a great way if your knees hurt, again, like if your joints are not healthy or they're hurting, Swimming is a fantastic, like a low impact cardio exercise. And it will, if you do enough swimming, again, like I'm telling you, it is a killer workout. And then in the evening, I will do another like boxing class. Same with Wednesday, but on Saturday, I will either do some sort of like optional like arm workout. I mean, I might lift weights there just because I want to get an arm pump, you can't blame me. But, either that or I'll just do a long run, like 3 to 5 miles, and then just kind of chill out on Sunday. But if I do an arm workout on Saturday, I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the push-ups and the pull-ups. I'm going to be doing every minute on the minute. So if I did like lateral raises, I would do like 10 sets every minute on the minute. And so like I would do 20 lateral raises. I'd have like 30 seconds to rest, and then I'd have to do more. Same with curls, same with like tricep extensions. That's really the only time that I'll actually use weights if I want to get an arm pump. That's it. And I understand this is a lot. Like I'm basically training twice a day most days, which is, I understand it's unrealistic for lots of people, especially if you have like school or a day job. I'm just lucky enough to be taking my college classes online, so I have a pretty flexible schedule. And I'm going to be using that to my advantage. If I can train twice a day, I'm going to train twice a day. But you don't have to. Like you can do all these things without one or the other. I don't think if you are trying to train for boxing, you don't have to do all the extra stuff outside of it. Or the same thing, if you want to just build up the cardio and the muscular endurance and the speed and the power, you don't have to do the boxing stuff. You can just stick to what you do in the gym. But there are so many things that you can do for your body, so many exercises that you can do to adjust your body weight, like push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, dead hangs, jump squats, sprints, long runs. Like there's so much you can do. If you have a split that you like if you like push-pull legs, for example, you could do a push day where you just do a bunch of push-ups, maybe you could do dips as well. And then like on a pull day, you could do pull-ups, chin-ups. You could do curls if you wanted to, or you could use like a band to do curls. And then on a leg day, you could do sprints, you could do jump squats, you could even do swimming. There's so much you can do with just your body weight. And so I've been thinking about designing another training program, because every single time I switch up my training style, I always make a new program and put it out for free. But the only thing is I'm still learning a lot about how to train for boxing, like boxing specific workouts. So I'd have to figure out exactly how to do that. But if that interests you, you can leave a comment below, and I really want to do something like that. I have like other programs all for free if you want to check those out in the description. So if you're kind of uncertain about like which direction to take your training, I think the first thing that you have to do is figure out that gym philosophy, that identity that you want to have. And once you do, I would just stick to it. I don't think it's going to be tempting to try and jump around a lot, but you can go through phases like 6 months at a time where you try out the powerlifting, identity, or the bodybuilder, or the athlete, or the endurance runner, whatever it is. Pick one that fascinates you and set a goal. Keep a goal in the back of your mind and train as if you are training for a competition. If you are an athlete training for a sport and you're trying to train for like football, for example, you would be training and you would be doing everything with the goal in mind of performing better in a football game, right? And there's no right or wrong way to train. I just wanted to share kind of how I've been approaching training and how I've been keeping a pretty solid physique and pretty good performance without really lifting weights at all. I'm sure this will appeal to a lot of people, but again, I don't think a lot of people will also be interested in boxing. So you can do all these different things. It all depends on what your goal is, what your philosophy is. But I think having a goal, having an identity, having a philosophy is the most important thing you could do. And again, you don't have to train twice a day, 5 days a week. You can make a lot of progress training 3 or 4 days a week with like 3 rest days and just going once a day. You don't have to do this insane kind of like twice a day regimen that I'm doing. I'm just doing it because I can, and I'm kind of addicted to training now. So, but either way, don't neglect cardio. I truly believe now cardio is one of the most important things it's just so important. A high VO2 max, like we talked about, like how efficient your body is at moving oxygen, that has been directly correlated with a massive reduced risk in all-cause mortality. I think it's like a 40%. I don't know. It's very good for you. That's all you have to know. That's about all I got for you today. I hope this helps. I hope you can take some of these things and use them in your own training. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below. I will answer every single question. And you could also book a call with me if you want. I'm doing like 7 or 8 more free calls. We can talk about literally whatever you want. Just anything you're struggling with, anything you're dealing with. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to leave any comments, questions below, subscribe, all that stuff. Until next time. Peace out.